Okay, so with the both of you, okay, we're going to start. Okay, so I'll be just have a quick lecture when it comes to your listening test first. Okay, and then later on, okay, I'll be sending the audios for a listening practice test, and then we'll see. All right. Okay, but anyway, let's continue with. Let me share my screen.
Hello, sir.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Good evening, sir. Fine, sir.
Okay, so we're going to start. So today will be your listening for both of you. All right. So what's going to happen here is I'll be giving an explanation. So in your listening test, okay, what you're going to expect here is that for paper-based tests, you already know it. For paper-based tests, okay, what's going to happen is they're going to give you 40 minutes to finish this test. Okay. So that means 30 minutes will be played for the audio, and then after audio is done, after audio is finished, they're going to give you 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet this time. All right. Okay, so that means, they're going to give you two papers. So paper-based tests, question booklet, and at the same time, answer sheet. Okay, so they're going to give this to you. All right. Now, during the test, if you're planning to do paper-based tests, make sure to write everything here first. Do not transfer right away, okay, because they're going to give you enough time to transfer it anyway later. Okay, so they're going to give you 10 minutes after. So what's going to happen here is during the 30 minutes of the audio, you're going to expect that the audio would only be played once. All right. And while you're listening to the audio, while you're listening to the conversations, okay, you have to answer as well. Okay. All right. So let's continue. Now, in this, okay, hold on. So I almost forgot computer delivered test this time. So for computer delivered tests, what you're going to expect here is the difference between the two is, of course, you're just going to directly type the answer on the computer on the screen. So that means 30 minutes would be enough in listening and answering the audio and the questions as well. And then once that is done, they're just going to give you additional 2 to 3 minutes just to check your answers. Okay. So there's a difference between the two. Now, in this test, it's not only about listening, you have to understand as well. Okay. So it means you're going to use three skills at the same time, so you're not only listening to the conversations, you have to understand as well. And you have to also read and understand the questions and then just match them for both. And then, of course, writing, of course, when you're going to write your answer. Okay? So this test would be assessing you how well you'll be able to understand the main ideas. Okay, hold on. Yes? Yes. Why? All right. Okay, going back. This test would basically assess you on how well you will be able to understand the main ideas, the information about what you're listening to, and at the same time, to recognize the opinions, the attitudes, and the purpose of the speaker. Okay, so in here, you're going to imagine that you're part of the conversation because see these audios. Okay, these audios would be a recorded audio, okay, based on everyday like situations. Let's just say an audio recording of one person, wherein this person is asking about, inquiring about a job. So for example, if that's the case for me, for example, I'm looking for a job. I'm going to call one person. I'll ask them, can you tell me about the job? What do I need to do? I saw your advert on the newspaper or online. Okay, I called. I'm calling in regards to this, and that. And then they're going to have conversation. So it's like that, everyday like situations. Now, okay, another purpose of this test is that they're going to test and see how well you can follow the development of an argument. Okay. All right. Now, in this test, it would be expecting that you would have 40 different questions. And in the 40 questions, it will be divided into four sections or four parts. So, depending on each part, difficulty would vary as well. So, starting with the first part being elementary level, second part being pre-intermediate, and then third part intermediate, and then the last one would be either upper intermediate or some people call it advanced level as well. right? Okay, now let's continue. In your listening test, it would look like this. Okay, so first, what you're going to expect is, it will be like a table. These question types will be like tables and everything. Okay, in this case, you would see it says your notes, Christmas dinner. Okay, so an example is written here, number to book for, 45, date of dinner, 21 December. Okay, and then choices for venue. And then first choice, you would see that, it's going to ask you to wait and answer exactly what their first choice would be. Then telephone number, they do not know. Second choice, again, most common answers here, if you're going to think about it, will be names of restaurants, right? Name of an establishment, name of a building, maybe, okay? Because it's talking about venue, okay? And this is what you need to look out for. And throughout the whole test, you're going to do this, okay? So if you're planning to do paper-based tests, make sure that after the audio has finished, after section 4 is done, is over, make sure to transfer your answers during the 10 minutes that they're going to give you. Okay? This is the time for you to transfer. So make sure to transfer them properly. And it's also advised, yeah, I'm advising you, it's not mandatory. Yeah, you can follow it if you want to, okay? But this would be advantages for people who, for example, have how you say it, have problems with legibility when it comes to their handwriting. Okay, so make sure that during this time you need to write your answers in uppercase letters to avoid confusion on the examiner's part. All right, with different parts. So let's start first with section 1 or part. As for part 1, this is called the elementary level, and as you know, it will be divided into two different parts as well. So section 1 would always be good for questions 1 to 10. And in these questions, you would be listening to a conversation between two people talking about social situations, like the example that I gave you earlier. In some instances, you'll be listening to people, okay, let's just say talking through a phone. Okay, maybe one person is ordering food from a restaurant, the other person is explaining the food items, the dishes available, and so on. So something like that. Okay, social situations, whatever you hear outside. Okay. Now, before you start, okay, for example, since I mentioned earlier that it would be divided into two parts, before each and every section, you would always be listening to the speaker, okay, in the audio, okay, explaining the situation. So in this case, this is for part 1. So he or she is going to say, section 1 or part 1. You would hear a conversation between two people planning a Christmas dinner. Okay. And then after that, they're going to give you time. They're going to say, first, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 4. Okay. During this time, the first tip that I have for you is to exactly know. It's like you're going to think about possible answers. It's like you're going to expect the actual conversation beforehand. So that means your focus here during this time is to clearly understand what's missing. You can use these headings as your guide. And at the same time, you can ignore other information that you think are not relevant yet. Because, see, the time that they're going to give you is not enough for you to read everything. So, for example, since date of dinner is already given, you don't need to answer that anymore. You don't even need to read it, okay, during the time that they're going to give you. Instead, you need to focus on what you need. So, for example, the clue here is choices and then place, venue, first choice, second choice, then third choice is number 3, and then last one will be the telephone number. Okay, and that's it. This is what you need to find. Right? Telephone number for the third choice. That's for number 4. Okay. In some instances, they're still going to consider. They're going to include 5 as well. So might as well try and see, okay, what number 5 would be. What answer would number 5 have? So it says your restaurant must have vegetarian food and something. So a food item, a dish, okay, or a drink even. Okay, that's it. Once that is done, for example, audio would start playing, okay, playing the part of 1 to 5. And then after that part, this time it's going to give a pause. It's going to give you a pause. And then you would be listening to them saying, you now have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Okay? So, and it's the same, So six, main course, this is an or. So if they don't have roast dinner, then change, right? Number seven, restaurant requires from us. Number seven, something and a letter of confirmation, maybe payment, okay, or maybe a letter, another letter, maybe a reservation, maybe a name, something, maybe an ID, whatever restaurants require you when you're going to book a slot, a seat in their establishment. And then number eight, we must blank in advance. So maybe pay in advance, reserve in advance, something. Number nine, must confirm in writing by maybe a date, right? Maybe a date, maybe a situation as well, maybe a different scenario. Okay, but mostly this is what you're going to do throughout the whole test. Okay, in order for you to catch and get a good score. Okay. Number 10 says you put notice in something, maybe email, put notice in the restaurant, in the box, or something else, the place. So this is what you're going to expect throughout the whole test. Okay. Going back here, section 1. So it will be like that. Later on, after my lecture, I will be explaining, or not explaining, sorry, I'll be giving you um, the test, okay, the practice test. You can do it as well at home there. You can download the audio, so at least you'll be able to listen to it again. Okay, but after that, I need you to inform me, okay, about the scores. Okay, I'll be sending you the answer sheet as well. Just ask me about the answer sheet, I'll send it to you. Okay, so let's continue with part 2 this time. Okay, for section 2 or part 2, what you're going to expect here is it will be a little bit tougher compared to part 1. But at the same time, this is good for questions 11 to 20. Okay, 11 to 20. So it will be a monologue, actually, meaning only one person is going to talk here, and this person will be explaining social situations as well. Everyday like social situations. So this person will be talking about, like the best example would be a tour guide explaining the scenery. So maybe, for example, they're going to say, onto your right, to your right, for example, you would be seeing this library. This library is the oldest building in town. It has a rich history and culture about this and that, before it's accessible to the public and so on. So, and then afterwards, they're going to shift to the next attraction. Okay, but basically, it's like that, right? So it will be quite similar to section 1, wherein you would also, or they would also play and split the section or the not section, sorry, they're going to split the audio and the question into two parts. It's quite similar. Okay. They're always going to give you enough time to read the questions, listen to the answers, and at the same time, at the end of each section, okay, at the end of each section, they're going to be giving you time to read, okay, and check your answers. Right? So there. Okay, this time let's proceed to part 3. Part 3 is a little bit challenging already. Okay, why? Because you're already exhausted from listening to section 1 and section 2. The key, the key skill when it comes to your listening is to stay completely focused throughout the whole test. Because if you're not going to focus, then chances are you will get lost. Okay, so as much as possible, as just do a lot of listening tests, okay, that you can do, that you have. Okay, why? So that at least you get used to it. You get used to everything. You get used to the speed. You get used to the accents or whatever problem it may have. Okay, so this is what you're going to expect. Hold on a second, I'm getting a little hot. Okay, this is what you're going to expect in your listening test. All right. Okay, but going back to section 3. So in section 3, this time, okay, so in section 3, what you're going to be expecting here is it will be good for questions 21 to 30. And at the same time, you're always going to be listening to a conversation between two, sometimes three, or even four people. Okay. Unlike in your section 1 and section 2, in section 3, what they're going to be talking about is usually set in an educational context or a training context. Meaning, a best example would be like a university professor asking for feedback during the two students' presentation. So they're asking the students about the feedback on other presentation, so something like that. Education related, university related context. How about training context? Training context is mostly related to work. Okay? Work related context. So let's just say a job interview. Okay, a job interview involving 2 to 3 people. So something like that, right? In section three. Chances are a lot of people find this test difficult. Why? Because there will be a lot of information coming from the speakers, coming from the audio. But another key when it comes to listening is to know, as long as you know exactly what you're looking for through the questions, because if you're going to notice, questions in your listening and both reading are very specific. If you're going to think about it, they're really specific. And since they're talking about specific things, then you're only going to listen to specific things as well. You have to understand these specific information, and then you just need to match them. Okay. All right. So there. Now this is for section three. Section three, they're also going to split this part into two sides. So two extracts. They're going to split the time together with the audio and then the questions. Okay, and then they're going to say maybe listen to, or you have some time to look at questions 21 to 23, and then later on 24 to 30, and so on. Okay. Yeah. How about section four? Section four, it will be, it's the same as the last part of your listening test. So this is good for questions 31 to 40. And similar to section two earlier, wherein you would expect that there would only be one person who's having explaining things here. So this person will be explaining mostly on educational related stuff, educational related context or training context. So best example would be a documentary film. A documentary film regarding animals, animal habitats, or something else, which is usually very boring. You're going to have trouble here. Why? How? Okay, especially when it comes to retaining the idea that you are listening to, because see, in your listening, especially in section four, sometimes the topic is very boring. They're going to be mentioning the answer for quite a long time before you start listening to the other answers as well. But the good thing about your listening is everything would always be in order. Okay, starting, they're not going to ask you, then you're not going to be listening to an answer for number 10, for example, right away. So, of course, everything would start at number one, followed by number two, number three, number four. You just need to follow and listen attentively. That's it, right? This time, how to deal with different question types. So in your similar in your reading, wherein you would be dealing with different question types, what you're going to expect here is that let's just say first question type maybe would be fill in the blanks. Okay, in order for you to catch the answer during in your fill in the blanks, make sure to know exactly what's the missing context. Something is missing. Mostly, they're going to be asking you, or in these questions, it will be very easy to handle. Similar to, hold on, to this, for example. Okay, so number seven, number eight, something, fill in the blanks. Like what we did earlier, something, okay, restaurant requires from us something in the letter of confirmation. So two documents. Maybe first document would be a scanned copy of the ID and so on. Okay. In some instances, other possible answers as well. So make sure to understand the missing context. They try and, how do you say? Try your best to try and have a guess. Expect the actual conversation beforehand. I think maybe they're going to be talking about this context. Okay. So this is how to deal with fill in the blanks. How about multiple choice? A lot of people struggle in multiple choice. The reason is because you would expect that they're also going to give out all of the questions, all of the choices. You'll be hearing all of the choices in the conversation. But the thing here is, as long as you're focused entirely on what you need to look for, especially in multiple choice, then you won't get confused. Because, like what I mentioned earlier, These questions are very specific and the answers are also specific. So even if they mention all of the choices in the questionnaire or question booklet, you know, you won't get confused as long as, they're going to differentiate these ideas. Okay. Same with short answers. Short answers wherein they're going to be asking you to choose a letter, just choose one letter out of five letters. Okay. And then they're going to ask you the question. So again, okay, you just need to find out the question. You need to understand the question. That's the key. Okay, even with maps and diagrams and other question types. For maps and diagrams this time, what you need to do is you need to try and understand, okay, and follow, okay, the speaker. This is very important. Do not get confused. Do not shift your movements, for example, in the maps, okay, especially in dealing with maps. So imagine and always follow the tour guide, okay? Because if you're going to think about it, realistically, you cannot jump from one place to another. So for example, the map, okay, or the diagram is covering a huge area. So imagine that you're just on top of the end, or you're in front of the entrance. You're in front of the entrance, and then the tour guide is explaining first before you can, take pictures inside the area, or you can go to the whole area itself. He or she's going to explain what you're going to see. So it's the same. You have your map on your hand, and then you just need to wait for the tour guide to explain everything. So he or she's going to say, onto this side, onto my right side, you will be seeing this. Okay, this facility is good for this and that, this and that. If you're hungry, you can go to the left side, okay, for example, to try and buy some of this, some of that. Okay, so this is how to deal with maps. Okay. Fill in the form and complete a flowchart or table, something like this. Fill in the form. So, for example, they're just going to ask you to fill out a form, okay, like this. So, for example, choices for venue. First choice in here, okay, in this question type, these question types, make sure to understand and use the heading as your guide. So, for example, choices for venue. This one is already included. So if 12 is not included here, and they're going to ask you, okay, the answer here. So price per person, then you already know what you need to find. Even here, number 4, telephone number. They might give you the full telephone number, but at the same time, especially when it comes to these, they're going to say it, they're not going to say it that fast, So they're going to give you enough time to try and quickly write it, but they're not going to say the exact how to say it, exact answer very slow. They're not going to do that. Okay? So they're just going to do it in a normal pace. Right? And this is what you're going to expect in your whole listening test. So, okay, do you have any questions? All right. Okay, so since you don't have any questions this time, what we're going to do is I'll be sending the files. I need you to do it. Okay, I will be ending our call. Okay? Of course, I'll be ending our call here in Zoom, so at least you'll be able to use your laptop or your computer or your tablet or whatever, okay, to try and play the audio and then do that test as well, right? Okay,
Okay,
so I'll
sir.
be sending it in our WhatsApp. Yes.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Okay. All right. I thought you have a question. Okay then. So I'll be sending it there, and then make sure to update me once you're done, so I can send you the answer sheet as well or answer key. Right? You can write your answers in any paper if you want. It's fine. Okay? As long as you write
Sir,
it
I
down, just
have the
make sure to.
answer key also. I have the answer key also. So I'm good doing from
Yeah,
there
I'll
and
send
check
it.
it and check from there.
Yeah, no problem. I'll send it to you WhatsApp in our group together with the answer. So at least you'll be able to check by yourself, and then we can re-listen to the audio. Right?
Okay,
Okay. So all right. If
sir.
you don't have any questions, then I will be ending our call. Okay, and then
Okay.
I'll see you in our next sessions. Right.
Sir, the online sessions will be every day. So, 7. The timing will be same.
Check the schedule on Facebook for online. Usually, you only have online sessions Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday in the evening. So you can check the schedule here,
Okay.
okay, together with the agenda on that
Okay.
day. All
Okay.
right. Okay,
Thank
so
you,
I'll
sir.
end our session. I'll see you both in our next class, okay, or next session, on Saturday if we're online. Okay, and then say goodbye.
Assalamu alaikum.